With two Gold and Black Live. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star joins us. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties. Hopefully, we'll be able to maintain connection. Kyle, welcome to the show. And I know you guys, you and Brian on the basketball tour when he's down covering the Caleb First of the world and Trey Kaufman-Renn, etc. You guys meet up from time to time, and interesting time to be watching Indiana boys basketball. A lot of talent in the state right now, and Purdue's got a couple of really good ones in Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing both of them play this weekend,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Trey is not going to be able to be there and participate in that game due to an injury. But I had a chance to see Caleb last weekend, and really came away impressed. I think Brian did as well. He just looks or has, and he's got a good team around him, so it's a fun group to watch, and it's been fun to watch his progression throughout his high school career. And now see what he's going to be able to do his senior year, and it would have been fun to see him match up with Trey, because it was a great game last year, and Cooper Jacoby actually ended up kind of being the star of that game from Silver Creek. But two guys that I've really enjoyed covering, and two guys who when you interview them, you really get a sense that they I've talked to Brian about this too. They care about the questions you ask them, which I wouldn't say that's unusual, but you appreciate that as a reporter.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle, what's the outlook for Mr. Basketball this year? I know there's obviously a bunch of different people all across the state, but how would you handicap it? How would you handicap it at this point?
Yeah, I would give Trey the nod as far as a front runner goes. Just Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year last year, which is a rarity as a junior to accomplish that. So I would kind of give him the nod going in. But when you throw the injury into it, he's not going to have a full season, of statistical numbers. So. I think that, where he probably had a slight edge over First and some others, I would, maybe that evens things out depending on when he can come back. And now if they come back and he's full go and they win a state championship, then I think he's still very much part of that and probably does win it. But I think First is right there. I think it's 1A, 1B anyway, between him and First. First has won a state championship as well. So you can't forget about that. He's already got that in his bag as well, as Kaufman does. And then I think a guy like Luke Goody, after watching him play on Saturday, he's going to Illinois, but he looked better than I'd ever seen him on Saturday. And him with Lawyer, that's a dangerous duo for Homestead. So, and I think they could go pretty far coming out of that side of the bracket. They would probably run into Carmel at some point, and Carmel's really good as well. But I would throw his name in the mix for that when you're talking about those top guys. And then, I think it's probably there's a lot of other guys who can kind of play themselves into into that mix as well. Blake Wesley, but they're going to have better seasons. I think you kind of start with the guys that have won state championships and have an established name, and then you kind of look at it from there. But I would say Kaufman and First, and then I think Goody's probably a good, not even a sleeper, but potentially could be number 3 in that mix.
Right up there with the other two, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What do you see, with Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn? You've seen them play, and Brian certainly has articulated what Purdue has. Or what do you see in terms of how well they will complement with each other when they get to West Lafayette, in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I won't say they're totally, but they are a lot different in the way that they play, and I think that appeals to Kaufman for sure. Because he's more of a, face the basket, and First can do that too. But I see Kaufman as the guy who can, stretch you out to the 3-point line, super skilled and great footwork and all of those things. I think the knock on him has been, these are things that he said, people have told me I'm not athletic enough, and that's kind of paraphrasing what he says, but I think that drives him to, prove people wrong. And I think that's what his mentality is as a player is, all right, you said I can't do this. Well, I'm going to go show you I can. And those are the sorts of things that I like about Trey, is that, he's going to go, he's going to go work on that. He's going to go work on whatever you're telling him he can't do. He's going to work on proving you can do it. But to compare the two of them, I think, first is I always have loved the way he found. I think he's a better athlete than probably people think he is. And he can face up and shoot. And I think he will be able to do that as time goes on, but just super, super active and, always plays super hard. And I think Kaufman does that as well, but that's not what I remember watching first for one of the first times in Ben Davis Fieldhouse for the top 150 they do for the in-state players. And, he was just, I was amazed how hard he was working in an environment where some guys just kind of show up just to be there and say they were there. He was just working his butt off the entire time. So that kind of left an impression on me from an early age. I think he was going into his sophomore year at that point. Just all the things that you say about him, I think are positive, and I think the same for Kaufman. But they do complement each other well as far as the different things they bring to the table as basketball players.
Yeah, they I've always looked at Kaufman as more of a, or now anyway, Kaufman maybe more of a perimeter player that can play a little bit on the interior, whereas First is more of an interior player that can play more on the perimeter. But that was a coup Purdue pulled off, getting both of those guys. It would be really, really difficult under a lot of circumstances to get guys who in any way, shape, or form would consider themselves to be playing the same position. So Purdue pulled an absolute coup there, if you ask me. But it would have been really good to see them play again this weekend. I know that was something both kids were probably looking forward to very much as well.
Yeah.
Well, we can ask Caleb.
Yeah.
On a little bit of transmission issue there, but Kyle, what Fletcher Lawyer, also another one you talked about, and I've had a chance to see with Luke Goody, but a guy that's really in the class of 22 that just committed to Purdue, and your thoughts on him. We're just not getting
and that
through.
was something he said he wanted to have happen, and
Brian, I'm gonna come back to you.
So, I agree. I think in most.
Yeah.
But really good shooter. Sorry about that, guys.
Yep,
okay.
I think we're losing you on that back end. I'm gonna, Kyle, I'm gonna let you go, and we'll fix it up another time. We appreciate it very much. Brian, hang loose for a minute. We'll finish up this segment. Certainly from that standpoint, Brian, Purdue's got somebody that we talked about Fletcher Lawyer, but also that Painter type guy. You've talked about how Matt Painter has been able to get these kind of guys that are going to be able to come in and blend well. All three of these guys, well, actually four now with the commit this week as well. Purdue's looking like it's still chugging along in the recruiting world.
Yeah, they're getting really good players, and they're getting really good Purdue fits. They're getting skilled guys. They're getting high IQ guys. They're getting conscientious guys. They're getting good people. I can't speak to Jameel Brown the way I can Fletcher Lawyer, because I've seen Fletcher Lawyer play more than probably anyone in the country at this point, because I saw him play 3 times this summer when there was very little to see. And I just saw him play a high school game, but he's really skilled. He's a really high IQ guy. He's versatile. He's a good passer. He's smart. He's everything that works at Purdue. Now he's going to have to get bigger and stronger. He's going to have to be able to guard people at the next level, but offensively and from a intangibles perspective, he's got everything that Dakota Mathias or Ryan Klein had.
Yeah.
And that worked big at Purdue. And the thing, for Purdue is they're getting really good players. They're getting really good Purdue fits. They're getting really good people. They're recruiting at the highest level Matt Painter's recruited at ever. I think they have to make sure that they get that edge to them too. They have to make sure that they find some guys here too who are going to really compete, really, really have some toughness to them. I know that I'm not necessarily saying the guys they're getting don't have that, but I'm saying I think what the last 2 teams at Purdue have underscored has been the need for that as much as anything. When Purdue couldn't shoot, Matt Painter went out and got shooters, and they've reaped the benefits of that considerably. They're going to have a ton of shooters. They're going to have a ton of skill on this team. They're going to have really good, smart players. They're going to have a very coachable team. But I think it's important, too, they have some killers on that team as well, and some guys who are really going to compete like crazy. I think you've got some guys with potential to do that. But in terms of a Rafael Davis, a Chris Kramer, that kind of thing, I think it's important for Purdue find some guys with that sort of mentality too, or cultivate it in the guys they already have committed.
All right, we'll switch gears for the last couple of minutes we have in this segment left about Purdue. Obviously, this year's team, obviously a very disappointing loss on Tuesday night to Miami. Purdue needs to shrug that off. Obviously, they've got Indiana State tomorrow night. Saturday night, 7:30 in Mackey Arena, and then the Big Ten. And that schedule off the jump is just, it's problematic for everybody playing in the Big Ten because the Big Ten's really good. But you know, what was your takeaway outside of the obvious from what we saw Tuesday, and what needs to happen for this team to have some level of success this year?
I could have just rewritten so many of my stories from last year because it was like when you watch the second half against Miami, they just need to grow up. I mean, they just need to mature as a basketball team. And, you know, it wasn't anything Miami did. It was, I mean, I went back and watched every possession twice, and it was, you know, Purdue just not being sound defensively, Purdue taking bad shots, Purdue making, you know, bad decisions, and everything you had to do to lose that game, pretty much you did. And
skillfully,
it could boil down. I mean, you can boil it down to any number of things that would have changed the outcome of the game. You know, if this guy shoots better, if Travion Williams plays better, if this happens, if that happens, if there's not two calls that contradict one another, block charge calls with, you know, Brandon Newman involved, you know, if so-and-so doesn't get in foul trouble, all of this stuff, you know, would have mattered. But at the end of the day, it's just, again, that situation where you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. If you just, you know, did what you did defensively in the first half, in the second half, you would have won that game easily. You know, if you just did any number of things, you would have won easily. This team last year was just incapable of making the right play at the right time so often. And, you know, here it is again. And the really disappointing part of this was it wasn't a young team issue. It was you look back at the guys who were a big part of what happened, and they were all guys who have played 3 years here, and or 2.5 years, whatever it is, 2+ years. And that's the maddening part of it is that it was Marquette all over again, but it's the kind of situation where Marquette had to make you better this time around, and it didn't. And that's what's maddening about this, and that's why Matt Painter was so justifiably frustrated after that game.
Yeah. And it has some animated stuff on the site here in terms of where he's coming from. So, all right, well, we'll have a busy week and then some because you've got Indiana State tomorrow night, Ohio State on the 16th, and then kind of a murderer's row of schedule. So it'll be a real challenge for the Boilermakers to get out of the gate and to turn things around a little bit just after a maddening loss to Miami. So Brian, we'll look forward to your coverage as we always do, and we'll also have our Saturday-Sunday conversation. Actually, it'll be on Sunday after the Indiana State game too. We'll follow back up that. So, all right, we'll stay tuned for a couple-minute break, and we'll bring in Zach Osterman back and Tom Dienhart back in. And we'll finish up our December 11th version of Gold and Black Live. Don't go away. Just hang loose for the next couple minutes, and we'll be back on Gold and Black Live.